I'm Jan from Creative Kid Stuff, and welcome to Inside Minneapolis.
Hello and welcome to Inside Minneapolis. I'm Phill Lindsay, and this is a special edition of Inside Minneapolis. We're going to look at Minneapolis as a city of community. We'll be talking with people from North Minneapolis, Northeast and Southeast Minneapolis, as well as South and Southwest. And then we're going to end up right here in the Crystal Court in downtown Minneapolis, sometimes known as everyone's neighborhood. But first, let's go up and talk with somebody up at the Camden Coffee Company. Stay tuned. It takes a special kind of person to be a Camdenite, no matter which neighborhood you happen to live in Camden. Community involvement, kind of a bulldogish determination to just stamp out that whole North Minneapolis mystique that it's, oh gosh, it's just a horrible place. It's not. I don't know, maybe kind of it takes an old-fashioned sort of person to live here. Someone who believes in the old values of what neighborhood and community used to mean, where you depend on your neighbors for support as much as you do your family. Your neighbors almost become your extended family. I think Camden almost draws people to itself.
Going down for spring training.
Oh,
that was great. Fort Myers. Hold on a second here.
Okay.
Well, we're back. What we just heard was some nice words from Kevin Ogburn up at the Camden Coffee Company. And we're going to continue our conversation about North Minneapolis with a gentleman, Lou Vann. Lou, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Actually, as I understand it, you're soon off for a hunting trip into Iowa.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for putting that off to sit with us here.
Yeah.
New tradition for yourself. Well, you do live in North Minneapolis, actually in the Harrison neighborhood.
Yes, I do. My wife and I bought a house there about 30 years ago, and we kind of looked around for a neighborhood to live in. And at that time, we weren't saying neighborhoods, it was just North Minneapolis. But we found a nice house we wanted, and we bought it, and we've been there 30 years.
Wow. What is it about Harrison? Any specific reasons that you said, I like this particular part of town?
Well, actually, I've been North Sider all my life, but and so did my wife. But we liked the idea that we were close to downtown, and we should be able to. We had transportation was there. We could get on a bus and come downtown. In those days, say 30 years ago, downtown was the big place to be.
Oh, sure.
And you could shop and do all the things you wanted to do without having all the malls. We didn't go to the malls in those days, but of course now with transportation, that's where you go. But that was one of the features. We liked that it was kind of a quiet little neighborhood. Being a North Sider in those days was like living anywhere. If you lived Northeast, that's where you lived. You grew up. Well, I grew up North Side, so that's where I kind of stayed. Yeah, that was community. Yeah.
Now you and your wife chose North Minneapolis, but you'd had an opportunity to literally see the world with part of your career.
Well, I was in the Navy. Yes, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to a young man growing up in North Minneapolis. I had the chance to go out and see what life was kind of about and see a lot of other countries that I enjoyed, but I knew that I had lived in one of the greater countries in the world. If we look at that career that I had in the Navy, it taught me so many things about leadership and how to handle myself just as a young person out there. And then to be able to bring that together with my whole life, always bouncing back on the idea that the Navy taught me a whole lot of things and how to have pride in myself. And people that see that you have pride in yourself, they follow you, they stay with you. It's an aura about you. And I've watched and seen people that way, and I'm proud of it to be a part of it.
Well, we were talking earlier too about pride and what that can mean for building a community.
Yep.
And I know in your case, you've put some of that to work in your own life. You've taken a little extra effort there to help out with some community activities.
Well, yeah, after about 4 or 5 years, I guess, at our living in my neighborhood, we got a break-in or something like that, and I noticed the crime was going to be a problem. So instead of it attacking me, I thought, well, and I've always been a character to go out and meet the challenge, so I found a neighborhood group and I joined up. I thought they were nuts for a while, but I was hung on. And we started meeting in churches and park buildings, and eventually we ended up getting grants and renting us a building and trying to do a neighborhood association, which we got started. And now we probably have one of the best collaborative of a neighborhood association, park board, and a school hooked together where we built, and not seeing all the bugs are out, but I would like for the bugs to be out. But we've worked at it through our NRP, which is one of the greatest things that they have in this city and in this state, and they have to keep things going to make it possible for our residents to be a part of what happens in their community. In the old 60s, they didn't do that. They just came in, bulldozed the neighborhood, and did what they wanted to do.
You know, I want to interrupt you for a second. One of the fun things we do here on Inside Minneapolis is we take a look, usually with historic photos of different parts of town, and I think you'll recognize where we are here. We're up at Plymouth Avenue at about Morgan Avenue.
Yeah, the show there, I probably went there when I was just a young kid, maybe 7, 8 years old.
Yeah, if people can look closely, right in on the right side, there's the Homewood Theater.
Right over
Yeah.
there,
Yeah, so you get some memories up there.
Yeah, I got some memories. Just looking at and seeing the streetcars and trying to understand how scared I was, a little kid walking out to the center of the street to get on the streetcar.
Those are big things going by. Yeah, I hear that.
You know.
Yeah, that's a nice picture, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Thank our crew for bringing that up. You were talking about people getting involved. What do you think? How much effort does it take? I mean, if you were to say to somebody, all we need from you is a certain amount of your time?
I would actually probably say that if we took and got at least 70% of our people that lived in our communities, and they could just turn around and say, hey, I'm going to give 2-3 hours, where do you want me to go? 4 hours a month.
Mm-hmm.
We're only talking a month. If we did that, we could clean up our neighborhoods a lot, and we're not going to run crime away. I'm chair of the safety crime in my neighborhood, and I see it out there, and I understand that we can't clean it all up, but we've got to make an effort. You can't just hide in your house. You got to use 911. That's what it's for. If you complain and you call downtown, you complain and don't do anything about it, come join the neighborhood associations. They're all out there waiting for us. They're waiting for you because people like myself are there, and there's a lot of good programs. You can change a lot of things. All we basically need is the people to show up.
Yeah.
And we can help out. I mean, we're doing good things, but we need more people.
Are the young people coming out? Are you seeing that younger generation?
The younger generation is having a hard time trying to show.
Yeah.
But it's up to us as the leaders of this stuff to try to show them that there are ways that they should be a part of this. They shouldn't lose it. We're trying to get programs to reach to the young people. And I think they'll come.
Yeah.
But it's just a while of that little inner part of their lives where they're confused. We're probably not confused, most of us. We all figure out right's down here and wrong's up there, and in between we live.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we do. When you're young, it's right and wrong. When you're older, it gets a wider gap. And you just have to live with that, but we can make the changes if we're willing. Mm-hmm. You know, and we got to put the time in. Get out and be, most neighborhood organizations got a lot of things you can be a part of, and all you need, and they're just waiting for the people.
And
to be
different
a part
types of things for different folks. I mean,
Exactly.
some might want to do the safety crime issue, some might want to do beautification,
Or as Harrison set up, we have a housing committee, we have our safety crime, we have a business economics committee, we have I'm going to upset probably some because I probably can't remember.
Well, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you got a lot of opportunities here, yeah.
They're there, and all you have to do, and the people that were, some people come in, spend a little time, and then they leave, but it's always open for them to come back and be a part of what's going on. One thing about setting on boards and stuff, we're not getting paid to do it. So we sit down there and we work on things, and we try to work with the city, but we let the city know too, you're not going to bulldoze over us. You're not just going to feed us something. You got to come down here and work with us, because we're more than willing to work with you. Even like the t-shirt I'm wearing here.
Yeah, what do we have here? Direct dialogue, yep.
Say about 7 or 8 years ago, people came to me and said, hey, we want to try to start something and see if we can work with the police department and the community and see if we can get something going this way. We wrote a big, thick book and all that stuff and turned it in. I don't know if anybody paid attention to it.
But maybe just the effort of doing it pulled some people together.
I got to meet more people in the community. I see them once in a while. We have a little meeting of this group sometimes, and we talk about and ask them, does it change things? Well, I think it has in a different sense, because the different, let's say, people of the city, when they change offices and stuff, they see things and view it in a different way. Our police department views things in a different way. Actually, we're doing a pretty good job in Minnesota. Minnesota is, when I was a kid or in the Navy, I always thought it was kind of a hidden place to go, because LAs and your Chicagos and your New Yorks. We're not close to that, but if we don't watch ourselves, we can be that. It's great growing big and being like, this wasn't here when I was in the Navy. I came home and they were building these things.
Yeah.
And the freeway wasn't there when I left here. When I come back, there was a freeway. But our city's growing. We need to be a part of it. The only way you're going to be a part of it is your residents that are sitting at home. You say, hey, how are you going to change something? One doesn't change? Yeah, two together, three, four. We stand up in our groups, and we can change a lot of things if we're willing.
Lou
It's
Vann,
just kind of up to.
excuse me, I want to say thank you. I like your point of view.
Okay,
Thank you for sharing it with us here.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that. Well, one of the features we always do on Inside Minneapolis is something we call What the Heck. Now, you'll see an image of what later in the show we're going to ask some people, what the heck is this we're looking at? Then we'll get the wrong answers from them, we'll get some right answers. But first, let's get to our regular feature, Did You Know? And I'll be right back after that.
I really like the town, though. I lived in New York for a little while, but I came back here just because it's so laid back and it's a really nice area. The only drawback is the weather.
Well, I came to school here actually from Milwaukee, and I decided that I liked it so much I decided to stay around and see what was available for me. And, it's a pretty good city. It's growing, it's building, and there's a lot of good things that you can do, and it's close enough to the outside that you can go there too if you like.
I like it because it's a nice town. There's like 6,000 rock and roll bands, and I'm in a rock and roll band, so it's very conducive to that. Unfortunately, there's 6,000 rock and roll bands, so I have to compete with everybody. But it's a good place to be. It's beautiful year round, really, even when it's cold, and it's Minnesota.
Well, I originally came here because I have lots of family who live around here. I'm originally from Chicago, and then let's see, I went to school here at the University of Minnesota, go Yost. And now I kind of live here because it's got a great theater community, and I'm a professional actor. And most mornings, in fact, most mornings I come here to Al's Breakfast. Al's Breakfast. Al's Breakfast. To eat breakfast. Because where else in the country would you get a little diner that has mediocre food and great atmosphere?
I grew up in St. Paul and went to school in Mankato. Took some time off and went to Madison and decided I had to get back to God's country. Because Madison is nice too. It's not Minneapolis. It's a lot smaller. The thing about Madison, there's too many hippies. So came back here. It's a totally different feel. You got places like this.
Yeah, I'm glad you do. Thanks.
But are you on 6 all the time?
Once a week. Excuse me, right
Once
now.
a week, that's
Once a week,
go
that's
ahead.
right. And we're back. What we just saw were some folks in Dinkytown, southeast Minneapolis, and we're going to show you an image here that our research crew dug up. Some of you may recognize this as the what was Gray's Drugstore for many years. This picture was taken in 1907. And that year just happens to be the same year that my next guest's father moved to Minneapolis, I guess. Walt Dziedzic, pleasure to have you here.
Hey, nice to be here.
Did I get that right?
I used to walk the beat there. in
You, as a
Dinkytown.
cop, you
In
did
Dinkytown,
this
sure.
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also in northeast Minneapolis.
Sure.
Well, let's go right to this other image here, because you said you also were up here around Central
Laurie
and
and
Lowry.
Central, sure.
Yeah.
Walked the beat there when I was a cop.
How long were you a cop?
16 years in the city of Minneapolis.
Okay, on the beat.
Yes.
And those were in days when you were actually wearing out shoe leather.
Oh, yeah.
You weren't in
Yeah.
squads at that time.
No, we
Yeah.
were walking the beat.
Okay, I just want to make sure our viewers know this is Central and Lowry up in northeast Minneapolis. Now, Walt, your family goes back, what, a couple generations in northeast?
About 7 or 8.
Oh, really?
My dad
Yeah.
came in 1907. He
Yeah.
came here with his younger brother, George Dziedzic, and Frank Ulinski's father, I forget his name, but
Yeah.
the three of them, the three studs.
So they made
from
their way
Poland.
over.
Yes.
And made a life in Northeast Minneapolis. What were the stories you heard about Northeast in those days, before you grew up?
Well, it was a ethnic community, a lot of different nationalities, but there was a lot of jobs there. The power elite in this city that lived out on Portland and Park and around the lake said, we'll put the industry in Northeast. Northeast has more industrial land than anybody. It causes some problems today because you got industry right next to residential.
Yeah.
But in those days, and to some extent even today, there are jobs there. People
Yeah.
could always, I never had problems finding a job when I was a kid.
What kind of things did you do when you were young? Now,
Oh,
this
I-
is before you became a city
Oh
policeman.
yeah. I would take a wagon when I was a young kid and go down to the grain mill and get wheat for the chickens.
Yeah.
People had chickens in the neighborhood. I worked on farms, picking vegetables,
these farms-
weeding the vegetables, right out in Brooklyn Center.
Okay, so
potato
close by.
farms.
Yeah.
I never lifted weights, but you couldn't work out there until you could lift a bushel of potatoes with your
Yeah.
two hands. So
Yeah.
you had to be able. That's why I got strong fingers.
Right.
You'd have to lift these bushels. And at the age of 9, 10, 11, you had to learn to drive a truck.
Because of the work.
Well, in the fields, you had
Yeah,
to
out
drive
in the field,
truck
you'd be doing
to
yeah,
pick
that
up
was
the bushels
that was
of
farm
potatoes.
life. Yeah, that's right. Well, then before you were a policeman, a lot of people still remember your sports career, and that started in high school.
Yes, it did. And
And
we
when-
had some really good teams.
What
and
school was that for?
That was Edison High School.
Edison School.
And not only did I go to Edison, all my children graduated from Edison High School.
Wow. So that's a family tradition now.
Sure is.
And your sport of choice was baseball.
I played baseball, football, and hockey.
Okay, well, so you got them all.
Yeah.
But then you went on to a pro career for a while, anyhow.
I played in the Dodger farm system from
Yeah.
51 and 52, and then I went to Korea for a couple of years. I came back in 55, and then I started St. Thomas College.
All right. You mentioned somebody very well known that you played catch with in that Dodger organization.
Well, when you're in spring training, you're all there.
Yeah.
From the lowest of the minor leaguers to the major leaguers, and you sit, and I just happened to tell the president of Ogburn that I played catch with Jackie Robinson, and he was really impressed. But my favorite story about spring training in Vero Beach, Florida, was Roy Campanella telling us stories about the old Negro League.
Oh, wow.
And it was just, you could sit there, and he would have 20 of us spellbound just telling stories
Yeah.
about. And he was just a kind of down-to-earth guy that could mingle with us and made you just want to succeed in life, listening to what he went through.
Well, now, after you played ball, you said you went to Korea. There was any doubt in your mind that you were coming back to Minneapolis, to Northeast?
No.
That was home.
This is, I left Minneapolis once.
Yeah.
I was in St. Paul.
Oh, my word, you went far afield.
Oh, yeah, once.
Yeah.
Just to get a...
Took a left when you should have taken a right or something?
to get a degree at St. Thomas
Well,
University.
okay. A little education over there, and then
Yeah.
you came back to Northeast, though.
Right.
What was it that you knew? Why did you know you were coming back to Northeast?
Everything a person wants in life is in Northeast.
Yeah.
You don't have to go. I told you before, if you ever want a good restaurant, you can eat in 15 different countries in 15 different days. Just go to a different restaurant in Northeast, whether it be Nice, that's Polish, Ukrainian, Kramachuk. Now, East Hennepin is getting to be one of the hot spots with the times moving in there.
Absolutely.
Places. You got Italian with Marino, German with the place up there on 23rd University. You got Little Jack's, Big Jack's, fine eateries.
Yeah.
Just name it.
In all the years that you've spent in serving Northeast Minneapolis, and we should point out for anyone who might not know, after you were a city policeman, you then served for a number of years on the city council.
Right, I was about 22 years on the 16 years on the Minneapolis Police Department, and then was lucky to be elected the city council member for 22 years.
Right, representing your ward there.
Right, it's a great community. Lowest crime rate in the city, best housing market for your dollar.
Yeah.
You right now you've got people getting diversity, but getting artists.
Yeah.
Artists are moving up there simply because it's the best value for their dollar.
Well, I know you gave a hand when the Art of World tour got started a few years back.
Right, Dave Felker came and had this idea, and I thought, what a super idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
But Dave was his idea, and now all we did is try to raise some money to get it off the ground. Now it's off and flying.
It's a mega tour. Every spring, I think they hold that. And,
Right, the idea is show the people of Minneapolis what we do in our own studios. So they open up their studios and they show a guy blowing glass.
Yeah, I've been to that one.
Oh, just
yeah.
you name it.
Yeah. Great to bring kids to, because then they get to see what's going on there and how
right,
it's done.
and some of these artists go into our junior highs, especially Sheridan is an art magnet, and it's really great.
Well, I wanted to ask you, in all these years that you've been serving Northeast and you've lived there and you've got family ties there that go way back, what are some of the big changes you've seen? For better or for worse? I mean, just what have you noticed changing in Northeast?
Well, unfortunately, we used to have about 80%, 85% home ownership. That's slipped down now. Yeah. And when you have that kind of a rental property moving in, there's a little bit of negative effect there. Yeah. But you know, we looked for years for a supermarket store where we could shop, and you know, all the time I was on council, always looking how to do that, and had a number of good chances. It always turned out to be a failure. But a few years ago, we got the quarry in.
Yeah.
And the quarry, believe it or not, is the largest taxpayer in the city of Minneapolis.
The entire city?
The entire city pays more real sales tax than any other entity in the city.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Including downtown.
And something that I've heard too is that
your MCDA, let me just tell you, Jim White.
Yeah.
When Jim goes to his future place of living, they should put on his gravestone. He was the inspiration that got us the quarry.
How long did it take you to work on the quarry and make that happen? That didn't happen overnight.
Well, counting all the failures, it was about 16 years.
Yeah, yeah. So it's worth trying over and over to make something happen that needs to happen.
You bet. And
well, we've got just a moment left, and since we brought up the quarry, I want our viewers to know that in addition to the quarry, and I've been up there shopping, there are other great places to shop in Northeast. You get these commercial nodes, you get Central Avenue. Do you have any favorite places you like to go? I don't know if it's for holiday shopping or just getting a gift for somebody.
Well, it's one-stop shopping.
Yeah.
I take my shoes to a place on Central Avenue. I take my clothes to Alto to Taylor on Johnson. You know, and I'm set in my way, so in that way I'm a little old-fashioned. I don't shop it around much because I already have these places. We have a breakfast club that meets every Saturday morning. We discuss the topics of the day, and so we go to different restaurants every single week.
That's great.
But if I could, let me just.
We got just a moment left.
Lake Sandy was filled in.
Yeah.
And I tell that story many, many times for the railroad yard now that is now the sewer line. That same kind of elitism is taking place today with the Guthrie. The Guthrie's trying to take over Parade Stadium, and as a park commissioner, I couldn't leave this program without telling you they should come in downtown Minneapolis.
We'll let you get that in, but it's a good point you're making that you're now serving the city as a park commissioner.
And loving every minute of it.
That's good. Walt Dziedzic, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate being here.
That's good. And here we are sitting at the Crystal Court at the IDS Center, downtown Minneapolis. Let's go ahead and talk with a woman who had something to do with renovating this space.
I'm Carrie Hill, and I was project designer on the IDS Crystal Court. It was a reinstallation that we did. The building was originally designed in the late 60s, 1970, by Philip Johnson and John Berge. And it's really one of the greatest public spaces in America. And the idea was, the original take was creating these masses that create really an urban court. And to bring greenery to Minnesota, I think when everybody outside Minnesota thinks about Minnesota, they think bring greenery into the winter. So the Crystal Court was to bring this green space. And I think what's so successful about it is that on the skyway level, it opens up, and as you can see, it's really a beautiful space, and it's also on the public level. And so when we approached the design, we thought, how can we revitalize this space using the basic concepts that were originally developed by Johnson and Berge? And the three elements we thought of were seating, greenery, and water. And water was also there because Johnson originally and Berge designed a fountain that was in the same position that we have our water fountain, but it was a smaller column, very similar to the brass columns in the PV Plaza just down Nicollet Mall. And so we approached it with the idea of trying to get your eye all the way up to the egg crates to get that 105-foot drop. So our fountain drops 105 feet in the same location into a planter, a granite planter that picks up the same granite of the floor. There's seating that's available for the general public all year round. The greenery is seasonal. It can be changed. As a historical building, we wanted to do things that could be changed in the future. Attitudes change, and so everything is temporal and changeable. And we're very excited with the public response. It's been fantastic, and it's always full, and it's a wonderful place to be.
I thought, first of all, I'd like to work near where I live. I think for a lot of people, there's the desire to do business close to where they live. Most people feel an attachment to the neighborhood they're in. I live about 2 miles from here, so I'm not in the neighborhood that I live, but I feel close enough that, I feel part of this neighborhood as well. I enjoy the people that I meet here. It has a real neighborhood feel. I feel like I can connect with a lot of the people. We have a lot of the same things in common.
We enjoy being close to businesses. We frequent the hardware shop down on our corner with the grocery stores, and our favorite coffee shop was only a block away.
I guess I live in Minneapolis because, first of all, I love being in the city. It's a friendly place. Things are close to your home. You can get to a variety of spots in a hurry, and it's a beautiful place to live. I can take a walk in my neighborhood or at Lake Nokomis, just a block away.
Well, we just like the community. We've been here for close to 16 years. Kids go, the school system, we like the school system. Kids go to Claire Barton, and they're friends, and we just, over the years, we've gotten to know a number of people within our area, so it's like a community, a small community within a large city.
We both grew up in Minneapolis, and we're very comfortable with it. We know the area, and it's just that it's got so many things for us to do that other towns, other little cities don't do. We live in Bloomington now, and Bloomington does not have the same amenities that Minneapolis has.
So those are some folks out at 28th and 50th in South Minneapolis, over near Lake Nokomis, talking about their feelings and their part of the community. I am Phill Lindsay, and you're watching Inside Minneapolis. And with me is a woman that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a few years, Laura Yost Manthe. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
And I have to add the Manthe because since I last saw you, you've been married.
Yes, I have.
And actually, there's an interesting story about how you met your husband.
Indeed.
I should set this up. You work, you're a teacher
yes.
in the Minneapolis school system,
That's
but you
right.
also created a program called Survival Arts.
That's right.
And very briefly, what is Survival Arts?
Survival Arts is a program that teaches personal and social responsibility in addition to academics through hands-on activities for middle school youth.
Right. And you've been doing that how long?
This is our 4th year.
Wow. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
But in the context of Survival Arts, you thought it might be kind of interesting for some of your charges, your kids, your students there to learn what?
Drum making.
Now, where did the idea come from?
The idea came from a student's parent.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
And so being the diligent teacher that you are, caring for these kids, you said, I'll go out and find me a drum maker.
Actually, the parent went out and found me a drum
really?
maker, yes.
And so you
and
booked in this
one
guy.
At that. Yes, we did. And 30 students made drums, hand drums, cedar frame drums. And they were beautiful.
Okay. Cedar wood, you're talking
Cedar
about.
wood, that's right.
Oh, but they're beautiful.
They are. And the drum, I've learned, is the heartbeat of the community, is a heartbeat.
Oh, I like
and
that.
so it really goes well with the work that we do.
And incidentally, you happen to like this drum maker. And
oh, indeed, I do.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'd be looking for a flute player
yes.
and a harpist or whatever. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Survival Arts. Now, this is in the context of you being a teacher. At least when I think of Laura Yost Manthe, I think of a teacher, and I mean that in sort of the deepest sense of the word. I mean, yes, you work in the Minneapolis Public Schools, but you're all about helping that next generation get ready. Am I right about that?
That's right.
Part of your motivation?
You bet. Sharing wisdom, art, literature, insight.
Where did you get the idea, though, to do something that is essentially outside, literally, the walls of the school, where the kids come in for, what, 6-7 hours a day?
Right.
Where did you get that idea?
Well, I think that the walls of the public school system as a factory industrial model of education are confining, and that kids, especially at the middle school level, are very active, and they want to move and groove and get things done and get out of their seats and work with their hands and make meaning in other ways, what we call constructivist learning, learning through constructing meaning. And because the need was so prevalent, a couple colleagues, very good friends, and I got together and we thought, let's do this. We need to do this. So we did. We constructed a program, and we've done lots and lots of groundwork, foundational work.
With these young people, and where do you do this? I should mention you teach at Falwell.
Yes, 3611 20th Avenue South.
Okay.
Between Cedar and Hiawatha and Lake and 38.
Okay, so right in the heart of South Minneapolis.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But and what kind of facility are you in when you're working with the survival arts?
We are in a middle school called Falwell Middle School.
Oh, and that's where this goes on. You don't have a separate.
No, we don't. We wanted to. When we met, we were pursuing a building outside of the school so that we could have an off-campus location, a fourplex where we could have classrooms and a dance studio gallery and perhaps a youth hostel of some sort for the kids to manage.
You were thinking kind of large here, weren't you?
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
Because the hands-on, completes the kids' learning in a real tangible way.
And in a way, survival art is also about outside the context where things are sort of put in front of you. It's the real world.
It is the real world.
How to balance your checkbook, how to make your way in the home and on the street and in the business world.
And I think that what we do best is we teach multicultural survival stories throughout American history to teach kids and to show them how we have gotten to where we are now, and to build community relationships, and to build relationships with each other, and to build a relationship with learning and a relationship with our education. So it's more that kind of survival. It's an academic survival and a psychosocial survival.
Right, right, giving them real tools to carry on.
That's right.
And I know in early talks, a few years ago, you and I talked a little bit about, I'm not sure if inspiration is the right word, but you paid attention to the settlement house movement as well.
Yes, indeed. That's right.
Yeah.
Jane Addams Hall House in turn-of-the-century Chicago is one of the models for what we do.
And of course, Minneapolis has had its history of settlement houses in different parts of the community.
That's right. And you've sent me some information about that. I haven't done that much local research, but Jane Addams' work in Chicago was so cutting edge and so compassionate.
Right.
Really amazing.
Well, now, you are not originally from Minneapolis.
No, Michigan.
How'd you get here?
When I graduated from college, I had a friend whose friend lived here.
Okay.
And we came exploring, and they loved it, absolutely loved it.
Oh, really?
And so
sight unseen, you had not been here before?
I made a visit in the spring and then moved in August without a job.
Without a job?
Without a job.
Well, what was it that made you feel like Minneapolis is a place you could sort of successfully land and make a life? I mean, what gave you any...
I knew I wanted to live in a city, a Midwestern city, so a friendly city, not too large, but some metropolitan area that was supportive of the arts and earthy. So that's
what do you mean by earthy?
Close to nature, with a what do I want to say, a frontier history of some sort.
Okay.
You know.
You came from?
I came from rural Michigan, I was really a city that has a natural component to it, you know, that it seemed like nature was a lot closer in my mind to the city than it really is.
And based in South Minneapolis, where do you go specifically to get that nature? I mean, we're talking like the riverfront?
Yes, Mississippi River, you bet, that's right.
Because I think even the other folks that live in South Minneapolis tend to think usually of the chain of lakes.
Yes.
Maybe Minnehaha Creek, all of which are great. But I sense that maybe people don't always go over and explore the river as much as well. Do you get your kids over there?
Yes, we do, as a matter of fact. We do.
Yeah? What do you do with them over at the river?
Well, we have a social studies teacher on our team who's been very active and sharing with the kids the progress and the changes of the Stop the Reroute project. And
okay, well, that's a big
That's a
issue.
very big issue.
Yeah.
And to examine and look at the ecosystem and the sacred sites and what kind of action, civil disobedience, if you will, has occurred
so that
there.
circles back into their educational learning
It does.
situation.
It really does. To see activists at work and committed.
Right. South Minneapolis, change the subject here a little bit. When you're out exploring with family, friends, or whatever, what do you like to go and do in South Minneapolis?
Oh gosh, there's so many things.
Yeah.
I frequent the Mayday Cafe, which is a wonderful coffee shop in South Minneapolis near Powderhorn Park.
Okay.
Excellent organic roast coffee. In fact, I've seen you there before.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Yes,
Another
indeed.
place that I hang my hat there once in a while, sure.
Linden Hills area is beautiful, Uptown.
Yeah.
You know, my neighborhood, I used to live in Uptown, and I thought I'd miss it terribly, but just walking around the neighborhood as a teacher and someone who's connected with community and people. And
Do you run into people that you're involved with, like at the
absolutely.
school?
Every day.
What's the name of your neighborhood?
Corcoran neighborhood.
You're in Corcoran,
That's
okay.
right.
Yeah.
And I like that so much because when I grew up in the country in Michigan, I missed that. I always wanted to be a townie.
Yeah.
And so now I have my opportunity. But I'm a little fearful of how urban I am at this time.
Do you bring people from the homeland back there in rural Michigan? I mean, do they ever come out and visit?
A couple times, yes.
And what do they think?
Love it.
Do they?
Yes. Yes. That bike ride through, from Lake Nokomis along the Creek Parkway to Lake Harriet is wonderful.
Beautiful. Well, Laura Yost, I want to thank you for just sharing a few of your thoughts about where you work and what you do in South Minneapolis.
Well, I was interviewing with a gal who's working on her PhD just the other morning about multiculturalism in the classroom. And if it weren't for the kids and the diversity of the population of students that we teach, I wouldn't know multicultural history the way I do. And that's been the greatest gift. And to see the resilience and the love and the joy and the hardship and the struggle that young people face.
And you're there to help.
And well, we all are, lots of us.
Good. Laura, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here. Well, my next guest is going to be Pamela Baker. We'll be talking with her about Southwest Minneapolis right after we go out to 50th and Penn and hear from some folks out there. Stay tuned.
I've lived in the city of Minneapolis for 25 years. We moved in because it seemed like the most comfortable place to be. I like sidewalks, I like parks, I like buses, and Linden Hills was like living in a small town in the middle of the city.
I just like the diversity of the neighborhood, and I've been lucky in that I've been able to work very near my home. I kind of have a thing about, I'm not a rush hour person. I don't like to deal with traffic, so it works well for me. And it's been a good neighborhood for schools and for my kids.
I live in South Minneapolis because every morning I can wake up and run around Lake Calhoun or Lake Harriet if I want, or Lake of the Isles if I want. I can also, during the winter, wake up and watch the ice taking over the lake bit by bit by bit, and in the spring I can watch the ice going away bit by bit by bit. I can watch the different birds as they migrate and they live on the Lake Calhoun.
When we were looking at Minneapolis, we found that it was more cosmopolitan. That's something we were looking for, and it was very family-oriented. And that's actually all we knew about the city and how beautiful it is, and it's the way people care about the nature and the land, and that's something that we're very close to.
Born and raised here, moved away for 10 years and I came back. It's home. I love the lakes. I like the neighborhoods, the people, like being from the Midwest. We lived on East Coast and West Coast. I want to be in the Midwest.
Between King Park and Fuller Park. So I'm King Fields. Yeah.
Okay, I might ask that specifically, so that's good. Here we go. So, and welcome back. The crew for that segment was out in Southwest Minneapolis getting some reactions from folks. My next guest is a woman named Pamela Baker. And I say that because I love your name, Pamela Baker. It's mellifluous, it rolls off the tongue. And as I say that, you tell me something I didn't know about you. You used to teach music.
Yes, years ago I did.
In an earlier lifetime.
In an earlier lifetime.
That's right. And where was that part of your life?
In Orlando, Florida.
In Orlando, where you grew up?
Yes.
Okay. But you didn't come to the Twin Cities directly from Orlando.
No, I came here from Michigan, from Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay, and what brought you here?
Actually, we looked here not only for education, but we also looked here to see if it was a place we might want to raise our family.
Okay.
And
when you
really
say,
like the city.
And when we say education, you mean yours and your husband's or the kids?
Yes.
Okay.
Mine and my husband's originally, yes.
Oh, okay. And so you came here and you found something like that, and now I know you've moved on with your family into education as part of your community commitment.
Yes, absolutely.
What kind of things have you been involved in?
I've been involved in everything from parent-teacher organization to site council and site-based management on the district level. And now I'm involved in the Arts Foundation that works with my school, the kids' school.
And for folks who maybe aren't aware, and this is a relatively new wrinkle in, I guess, the education connection to community, when you talk about site councils, what is that for folks who maybe aren't aware?
What it really is about is that parents and students and the community have a say in sort of what the makeup or the look of the school happens to be. So as the school sort of defines what it wants to deliver as an educational message, as a method, or the things that it values, they look to the community for that. And so site-based management and the site-based council then being the representative body of that sort of speaks to those issues.
Okay, and you're there really as a parent and as a member of the community.
Right, exactly.
Along with the teachers and I suppose
Right.
other administrative staff and stuff. And kids are part of that council
Kids
as well?
are part of it in a
Students?
different way. I mean, they don't have to go to meetings all the time like the rest of us, but they do.
Let them live their innocence until
Yes,
all the meetings
exactly.
get on our schedules
Exactly.
and things like that. As we were chatting earlier, by way of Michigan, you landed here in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, but you looked at a few other places, I think you said. What was it? What were your first impressions as you came to Minneapolis? Had you seen it before at all, or you got here and you checked a few things out?
I had some friends who lived here who got married here, and so I came for their wedding, and that was my only real sort of concrete connection with the place. But I had visited all the other cities too that we thought we might want to live in.
So you really went shopping, is what you're saying?
We went shopping.
Yeah. You want to rattle off a few of those other cities?
Seattle, Columbia, Missouri.
Okay.
Those were sort of the top.
I like Seattle a lot myself,
Yeah.
although not enough to have moved there. I'm still here.
It's a nice place. So I think the thing that we liked about the Twin Cities really had to do with the arts.
Yeah.
And the support of the arts. Had to do with the fact that we understood what the public schools were doing at that time, and they had a fairly positive national reputation as far as being progressive and understanding education and trying new things.
Yeah.
We also really liked the sort of feel. People were really nice and
just kind of that
it felt for a small
subjective
town, even though it was really a large city. And I'd already lived in New York, so I knew what big city, could feel like, and it really didn't feel that way. And
that's an interesting impression. Yeah. How long have you been here in Minneapolis?
18 years now.
Okay. Well, yeah, and 18 years is enough time to get a bit of a perspective. What kind of changes have you noticed in 18 years?
Wow.
Does it still have that feeling of a bit of the small town, or has it gotten so big now that a newcomer might feel like, hey, this is basically another big city?
No, I actually do think that it still has that sense. In fact, recently we had a new kid join my son's soccer team, and one of the comments he made was, it's the first time we really felt really connected, because it felt like in Minneapolis that people were a community.
Okay, and they've been coming from somewhere else.
They came from Massachusetts.
Oh, all right.
So
another
I thought
testimonial.
That was, and I hadn't really realized or taken notice of it recently, but that sort of confirmed it. I think.
And you mentioned soccer. Is this through the school or through the parks, or where?
No, my kids are kind of high-powered soccer players.
Oh, okay. So you got like an authority here teaching them and stuff like that. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
so they're serious about this.
They're serious about it.
Can people get good soccer training in Minneapolis?
Absolutely.
See, I go back far enough that it was baseball, it was football, maybe a little tennis, and soccer is a new generation kind
There are
of thing.
a lot of clubs in the area.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunity for kids in the area, and it's growing. I mean, there are new teams out there every
One of the
year.
things I want to ask you is, as a parent, what's your impression of Minneapolis as a family-friendly city? Is it family-friendly?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
I mean, we talked about the schools, but in other ways as well?
Absolutely. We're one of those families that take our kids everywhere. We don't believe that kids... I mean, we do feel that there are some things that kids don't need to do.
Right.
But if we want to go out, we want our kids to go with us, then we want to have that sort of comfort level. And there are very few places in this city that I think that kids are unwelcome.
Right.
And I especially like the fact that a lot of the theaters and the museums are very much kid-oriented.
Yeah.
And it's never a problem to walk in with your kids and look at art together, and people don't look at you,
How about downtown?
sideways.
Is downtown a place you come with the family?
We come downtown, but we typically come downtown for particular kinds of events or shopping or Timberwolves games, that kind of thing.
Special events.
Special events.
Not a thing where you just wake up and say, hey, let's just go walking through downtown or something.
Not
like
really.
that.
Not really.
Favorite places in your side of town? Now, what neighborhood are you in?
I'm in Kingfield.
Okay, so again, Southwest Minneapolis.
Southwest Minneapolis.
Any favorite places that you, either by yourself or as the family, like to go and just have some fun in Southwest Minneapolis?
Well, we actually spend a lot of time around the lakes.
Yeah.
And lots of the places on the way to the lakes.
Yeah. How do you get there now? Is this get in the car and go over? Do you bike over? Or?
All of the above.
Anything?
Walk over.
Yeah.
We're not so far that we can't walk over.
Right.
We love the rose gardens. We love the rock gardens.
Yeah.
We do go to actual places. I mean, in the sense that we love the malt shop as a family.
Oh, sure.
And go and have
Sure.
malts and hang out and that sort of
just
thing.
off Lyndale there at about, what, 50th or
It's
something?
at 50th, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And we shop at places like Patina, which are right there. And
Another neat place to get stuff, yeah.
And we do a lot of things actually also over in Linden Hills and in
Yeah.
terms of creative kids stuff.
Charming area.
Because my kids kind of like that. But
Sure.
we really like the outdoors and being active, so we do spend a lot of time just kind of on long walks. And
Being originally from Orlando, and I know you had some Michigan experience in there, the seasons. What's your favorite season here in Minneapolis?
Right now it's fall.
Right now? If I asked you a few months from now, it'd be winter? Or?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy the winter here in the sense that I really like to cross-country ski, and you can really do that along the creek.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
and that's one of the nice things about
I'm
the
more of a
area.
cross-country skier than a downhill,
Yeah,
and you can do that
downhill,
right in the city.
Yeah.
You don't have to go
Absolutely.
find some
Absolutely.
mountain somewhere.
And that's what I like about it. I'm not particularly interested in going great depths now.
So you keep that right in the community, that kind of activity. One last question, we're just about out of time here. When you're describing to family who are maybe, I don't know if they're still in Florida or folks and friends that are not here, how do you briefly describe Minneapolis to them if they want to know?
Oh, I'd like to mention the fact that it really has that sort of cosmopolitan feeling, but it actually has a sort of small town essence to it, that it has nature right within the city limits, that you don't have to go far to experience things. You know, I love the fact that my kids can take classes at the Guthrie and can, you know, can do all of the things that they really want to do, and they're very active, and we're happy with those options and having those options.
Great. Pamela, thank you.
Oh, you're
Pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks very much. Well, in a moment I'm going to be talking with George Rosenquist about downtown, which has sometimes been described as everyone's neighborhood here in Minneapolis. But first, let's go out with the crew to the Warehouse District, which is another part of downtown Minneapolis.
I work here. Why do I work here? Because I've got a job here. I don't know. It's a nice city.
Because I work downtown and I like being downtown. There's lots of things to do.
It's fun. There's a lot of people down here and it's just really different. It's better than being stuck way out in the suburbs. There's not a whole lot going on out there.
City of Minneapolis is great because of the lakes and the great easy to get around city with the skyways in the wintertime.
Because our commute is 5 minutes long and we never have to get on a freeway.
I guess I like it because there's more action going on than just the suburbs. Because we're actually from the suburbs, so.
Lunch is great and shopping is great.
Well, the people are very nice. There's a lot of things to do here. You can go to the Target Center. You can go to the down to the what do you call it down there? The Convention Center. A lot of things going on there. Football. You got the Vikings. Just a lot of stuff going on.
This is a great venue for the show, too, right here.
I'm glad to be here. I'm going to interrupt you right now. Okay. And we're back. You're watching Inside Minneapolis. I'm Phill Lindsay. And what you just saw were some folks in the Warehouse District, which is sort of the other leg to downtown Minneapolis. And actually, here's an image. We like to hold up some images of different parts of town in these shows. This shows some early electric automobile along Hennepin Avenue between Washington Avenue North and 3rd Street North. The picture was taken in 1900. Nice image. And now with me to talk about downtown as a place to live and to work is a gentleman who knows it pretty well, George Rosenquist.
Phil, how are you?
Pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank
and
you. It's a
we
pleasure
were
to be
talking
here.
earlier. We can't even remember exactly where we met, but I know we go back on some downtown committees, and you've made a commitment to helping make downtown a better place to live and work.
Yeah, well, I live down there, and I have for the last 13 years.
Yeah.
So it's my neighborhood, my home.
That's right. And one of the things about downtown that anybody that's been to downtown Minneapolis, if they've only been here for an hour, you notice the skyways. And you're a fan of the sky. In fact, you're on a skyway committee. Talk about the skyways a little bit, what it means to you, what it means to this city.
Okay, we have about one of the most developed skyway systems in the world. Other cities have them, but not to the extent that we do. Our skyway system is predominantly privately owned. I believe it's a real great example
of the private-public partnership, which our city is so proud of. About 2/3 of the skyways are owned independently. In the last several years, the city has started itself to become one of those private owners and owns about 1/3.
Right, especially linking some government buildings, I know.
Well,
that's who could
yes, in the convention center and around the 3rd Avenue parking.
Right, the so-called
district.
government corridor, yeah.
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 Yeah, and but the point of the private ownership and development is that over the years, being privately owned has saved the city tens of millions of dollars in capital expenses. Additionally, the private sector then pays for the maintenance of them, the heating, the cooling,
And occasionally a little entertainment even in there.
the
You'll see
cleaning,
that.
a
Yeah.
little entertainment,
Yeah.
the security.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
for office workers who have to come in from some peripheral parking, it's real handy to come right in on those skyways and get to their office building.
That's true, and that's where these 3rd Avenue distributor parking garages are important.
Right.
Because people that work downtown, many of them, will park there and then walk to wherever they work. And the city then, that's why the city developed skyways for those garages.
And the fact that they're on what we call the periphery of downtown isn't a mistake. The planning for the central business district goes back a ways.
Yeah, it goes back to the first downtown plan, which was in the 60s, I believe, and called for a real compact core downtown. Then every plan that's been done since then, every 10 years, has built on that point.
And people have kind of worked hard to keep it that way.
Yes.
Kind of keep it tight. Now you live downtown. In fact, you live on Washington Avenue.
Right.
And as someone who not only comes through the skyways at during the business day, what does it mean to be a resident downtown? How do you enjoy downtown as a general place to live, as a neighborhood?
Oh, I think it's great, and I'll tell you, in my building there are 306 units, and a lot of them are owned by people that have lived in traditional green trees and yard neighborhoods and have moved to downtown as empty nesters or otherwise young professionals. And all of them, I have yet to hear a bad word about downtown. Everybody just loves it. And they're so surprised. I mean, I didn't know it was this great.
Now, considering the fact that they're surprised, and this kind of puzzles me a little bit, they obviously they intentionally come to downtown to live, as you mentioned, an empty nester, or maybe they've got a new part of their life that's going on, they want to be here. What do you think originally drew them to downtown before they realized some of the other great features to being down here?
I don't know.
Just maybe the connection here.
Yeah, I think the fact that our downtown is a vibrant and growing downtown, as opposed to some cities where the downtowns are decaying and on the downhill slide, is probably as responsible as anything.
Well, there are obviously some planning efforts, there are development decisions that are made, but there also has to be kind of a spirit, if you will, a zeitgeist. What is it that do you think makes Minneapolis make those kind of decisions as opposed to some of these other cities?
Well, again, I think it's the vitality of downtown and the diversity of downtown. The fact that there are a lot of functions that are produced by the shopping that's available, the sports activities, the entertainment that's available, just the diversity of the offerings that downtown has.
You told me something that I did not know, and that is that downtown is growing in terms of numbers of people. And then you had another interesting fact, that it's one of a couple.
Yeah, the city has 81 neighborhoods, and there's only 2 that are growing, downtown and one other. And downtown is growing very quickly.
Where do you see most of that growth? What's the most exciting part of that kind of downtown?
The The heavy growth now is along the riverfront area in the North Loop. I think in the future, in fact, the MCDA did a study 2 years ago that determined that the area from the Milwaukee Road back east to Seven Corners is the next real housing target area.
Okay, what I've heard described as sort of downtown east, in other words, sort of between the west bank of the university and the more developed business
That
core.
is downtown east. It's the neighborhood that falls into.
Right. You know, before I forget, I want to show this image. I know you're a downtown guy, but this predates you quite a ways.
Long ways.
Yeah, long ways.
Yeah.
This is a nice image. Why don't you just describe for folks where this is? We're looking down Nicollet Avenue here.
Down Nicollet, but Dayton's is right over here,
Yeah.
so we're
And
in
you can-
probably 8th or 9th Street.
Now, some of these buildings aren't with us anymore. I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but there's just a little beginning there of the Donaldson's building there, the old Donaldson's, obviously. And obviously they're decorated for the holidays there.
Yeah, that would be the Donaldson structure that burned down
in the
10, 12 years
Yeah,
no,
somewhere in
more
the
yet,
80s.
15 years ago.
Was it that long ago? Yeah. And of course, now we got a big new beautiful building there.
Right, now it's city center, isn't it?
No. Isn't that where the bank is?
It's Northwest.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's right. We've got just a minute left, George, but I have to ask you this because you spend a lot of time downtown, and I want our viewers to know if there's any hidden treasure downtown, something that you found, something that you enjoy, a place you like to go, or something that happens downtown that maybe most folks who don't know downtown don't know about.
Well, there's, of course, a plethora of restaurants and entertainment options downtown. As far as any hidden options or hidden treasures.
Favorite saloon?
Well, yeah.
That's another show.
I don't know what would be a hidden treasure, really. But
plenty of places to go and eat.
There's plenty of places to go, plenty of places to be entertained, plenty of options to recreate downtown, such as the riverfront area, outdoor areas.
All right. George, thanks for being on and sharing a little bit about your impressions of the downtown area in Minneapolis.
Thank you.
Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to be here.
Well, now let's go get some answers to our what the heck features. Now, these first answers maybe aren't quite right on the mark. We'll be back then with the right answer.
A Roman statue.
Was it Perseus, Dionysus? To Greek mythology, I can't remember.
Looks like the state capitol in St. Paul. I don't know. Michelangelo? I don't know.
It looks like a guy lounging at a museum.
Looks like King Zeus.
Father Hennepin, is it? Father Hennepin, I think.
Hi, I'm Bob Swanson. I'm with the Municipal Building Commission. We're located here in City Hall in Minneapolis, and behind me is the beautiful Father of Waters statue, which represents the Mississippi River from the headwaters all the way down to the mouth of New Orleans. It was originally made in 1911 by Larkin G. Mead and was purchased by the city of Minneapolis to put up here.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this edition of Inside Minneapolis. Next month, we're going to return to our corridor theme. We're going to look at Eat Street in South Minneapolis. And at the end of this show, of course, we have our usual catalog of useful resources and our end credits, although this time we've got some interesting commentary running alongside. We'll see you next month. I'm Phill Lindsay.
I came to Minneapolis because my life in Los Angeles fell apart, and I had been here before, and I love the winter. So that's what brought me here. What kept me here was sitting in my little efficiency apartment with my pillows up against the window, and I had them all propped up so I could sit and I could watch the lights from Lincoln Center fade on in that pyramid as the sun went down. And there I was living in downtown, working in downtown, and that was it. That's how I knew that I would be here forever.
Well, I came here because of the culture and the uniqueness, and the reason why I stay here is because
basically of housing. I would take a 100-year-old house anytime over a brand new built home. And because I can just about have anything within a mile or two of my home, the diversity, the restaurants, the theater, the culture, the coffee shops. I love living in Minneapolis.
An early memory of Minneapolis, when I was a freshman in high school, I lived with my sister, babysat for her one summer, and lived in her closet, and the window faced north. And I would look out over the skyline and see the IDS building and look at the skyline and all the lights, and I just knew that's where I wanted to live and where I wanted to work.
What brought me to Minneapolis were the job opportunities, but what keeps me in Minneapolis is my involvement in the neighborhood organizations. I happen to live in the Stevens Square neighborhood, and it's been exciting to have an opportunity to decide through the NRP process how our money is spent. And it's a good feeling to be able to walk down the street and know people and feel comfortable in the neighborhood.
I knew that Minneapolis was home when I would see the skyline. When it used to be when I would come visit Minneapolis, I'd see the skyline from '94 and feel like now I'm in the big city, now I'm going to do something fun. And after I had lived here for a while, I would come home from out of town and I would see the skyline and I would feel like now I'm home.
Why did I move to Minneapolis? I needed a big change in my life, and I think Minneapolis was the answer. And now, 10 years later, it's a place I call home.